Welcome everyone to OpenInfra Days North America 2025. This is our second OpenInfra Days. Last year we were hosted at Indiana University in Indianapolis. Was anyone there? Nice. Excellent. For those who don't know me, my name is Amy Marish. I am one of your MCs for the weekend.
And I'm Sash Kosh, and I'm the other MC for this weekend.
All right, so we have a full day of events. Yes, we know we're starting a little late. We'll catch up eventually. And we're going to have the keynote starting in a minute, but we want to thank our sponsors. There we go. Our headline sponsors are Rackspace. Thank you, Rackspace. Z-Converter Cloud. Spotlight sponsors are Jetstream 2 and Lightbits. Our coffee sponsor, thank you very much, Pure Storage. Our diversity sponsor, which is near and dear to my heart, Open Metal. And the OpenStack birthday sponsor is Red Hat.
And also a huge thank you to all the community members who made this community-driven event possible. So we are very excited to be able to bring this to you.
All right, tonight we are going to celebrate 15 years of OpenStack. We are at Deer Wolf. I have no clue where it is, but it is nearby at 6:30. Spacing is limited, so find me during the day. Part of the reasons why I wore a very findable t-shirt. I have tickets. So if you are interested in going, I have 50 tickets. Come find me. If you pre-registered, find me first. So let me introduce Allison Price. Everyone should know her from the foundation. Oop, hang on. She's so organized. She gave me a speech and everything. We want to get Allison's title right. She is the VP of Marketing and Community at the OpenStack Foundation, and she will be joined on stage partway through by Gerald Bothello, the Senior Director of Cloud Engineering at Walmart Global Technology.
All right, thank you, Amy and Sash, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here. I didn't make the last OpenInfra Days North America, so I'm really excited to meet all of you this week. As Amy said, I'm with the OpenInfra Foundation. If you have questions or want to learn more about us, there's several of us here this week, so please come and say hello. But today I want to talk about the $8.8 trillion market that we're seeing around open source infrastructure, what's driving it, and how our projects and how our communities are responding. That said, before I get started, I do want to take a moment. I know Sash called out the organizers, but I think she understated it a little bit because she also is one of them. But everything, all the programming, all the refreshments, all the sponsorships are organized by people in their volunteer time. So I think there's a few of you in here, so stand up, please, and please help me give a round of applause for these people and all of the work they did. I know finding that drink ticket from Amy is really important, but also find them and say thank you throughout the week, please. Another thing I wanted to call out that's really special about the place we are this week is about the impact of the recent wildfires. Not only was this area impacted, but this actual building was where people were offered refuge when they didn't have anywhere else to go. So the organizers made a really awesome decision and used some of the sponsorship money they had to donate to the World Central Kitchen to help those who are affected. I encourage everyone, if you have the means, there's a QR code. This is a great organization who is directly helping people rebuild their lives. All right, so let's talk open infrastructure. So like I said, some of you may not be as familiar with the OpenInfra Foundation, so I wanted to give a brief overview of just what we do, who we support, and how you can get involved. So we support open source infrastructure projects and build communities around those projects to make them sustainable and make them suitable for production environments. OpenStack may be the most familiar project that you see on the slide, but we also support Kata containers, Starling X, and Zool, which are all critical pieces of infrastructure software. And we have presentations this morning that will go deeper into those technologies. So I encourage you to learn more about them and how you can get involved or use them in production. We can't do any of this, the foundation, all our communities, and even these events without our partners. So we are supported by organizations throughout the world, many of whom are also sponsoring this event, that are gold, platinum, silver, and associate members who really contribute and further the mission of the OpenInfra Foundation, which is to build and strengthen these open source communities so they can be sustainable and they can serve the organizations who rely on them day to day. What all these organizations are made up of, we're not just organizations, we're people. Every single person in this room has a story, and actually there's a podcast now called My Open Source Experience that Ildiko Vangsha leads, where individuals are able to tell those stories. And something that I'm super proud of is that our community is made up of over 110,000 people that each have a really unique story, really unique contributions, and really unique part of the community that no one else can replicate. So thank you all for being part of this community, because we can't do it without all of you, and everyone brings such a unique perspective that makes all of this work. And when I say work, what have we done? Let's put some data behind it. So like I said, OpenStack is one of the more familiar projects, and we're also celebrating 15 years this year, which is very exciting. So there are some activities out there where you can kind of talk about how long you've been in the community and what your contributions have been. But together, this global community have contributed over 600,000 code changes from over 10,000 contributors, hundreds of organizations, and it's become one of the most active open source projects around the world. So this is impressive. This is exciting. This momentum is something that as a community we're really feeling from an adoption perspective that we'll hear from Walmart in a little bit, from a contributor perspective that we can see in these numbers, and even from an ecosystem perspective that you can hear out there when you talk to our sponsors in the hallway. What it really reflects, though, is this overall demand. It's bigger than OpenStack. It's bigger than Kubernetes. It's bigger than all of the projects combined, because there's this demand for open source infrastructure software because of people looking for various reasons, whether it's different cost efficiency, whether it's avoiding vendor lock-in, but they've measured that it's an $8.8 trillion market. So this is massive. This is a massive growth opportunity. It's a massive opportunity for all of us to come together, build software, and make sure everyone's aware of this as an option for their data center infrastructure. Within that, we're seeing a financial market growth for OpenStack as well. So the market opportunity from just last year has quadrupled, or is expected to quadruple, until 2029 to $91.4 billion. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of just ways that OpenStack can come and change the world, and I think all of us are part of that, which I think is really exciting. 15 years in, sometimes, I remember in 2014 seeing numbers like this, and I was like, okay, sure, it's a newer project. But we're 15 years in, and we still have a massive market opportunity, and I think that's really exciting. But this growth, like I said, it's not just the contributors, it's not just the market, it's also the users. So one user we actually haven't heard from in a long time that, I talked to Gerald a few years ago. I called him, and we were talking about how Walmart's used OpenStack since 2014, and I told him, I was like, well, I'm running into this challenge because people keep telling me OpenStack is dead. And I'm sure, raise your hand if you've heard that, Yeah, me too. And he laughed at me. He's like, why would they say that? We've been using it since 2014, it works great, and we're gonna continue to use it far into the future. So I'm really excited for him to come on stage and join me to talk about Walmart's OpenStack cloud journey and how it's evolved since 2014. Please welcome Gerald.
Thank you, Allison. Yes, we have been using OpenStack since 2014, and I'm here today to talk about Walmart's OpenStack cloud journey. We started in about 2014 with Havana, with a small team, few engineers, few thousands of cores. And our application teams were excited, and we ran our holiday on a few thousand cores, and it was really successful and it really went well. That generated a lot of interest from our application teams within Walmart, right? So as we moved along from 2014, the interest with application engineers and the teams inside increased. So we ended up doubling the capacity every year from 2014 all the way to 2017, right? So we started to outgrow our data centers. By 2017, we had already crossed about 100,000 cores. Now in today's date, 100,000 cores is small, but those days, I remember there was a 100,000 core club that we had stickers and everything. I still have it on my laptop. And as we kept going, the adoption kept growing within the company, right? So by 2017, as we were growing double the capacity every year, we started to outgrow our data centers. So we started looking at public clouds as well. We started to integrate with some of the public clouds. Moving along, by 2021, we had integrated with public cloud and private clouds. Our private was applications that ran on OpenStack as well as on the public clouds. By 2021, we hit about 1 million cores. And now, fast forward, we are way past the 1 million cores mark. So OpenStack continues to grow within Walmart, and we use it as a mix of between public and private, right? Now, with the scale that we are growing with, you also need to keep upgrading the clouds and be current with OpenStack, right? So with our scale, we found it really important to keep constantly upgrade these clouds. So back in 2014, when we were, if anybody remembers with Havana, it was pretty disruptive. So we had our first holiday, and then we had to upgrade to Juno, and it wasn't very pleasant. So we migrated the workloads, the application teams moved over, and then we went to Juno, and the silver lining is from Juno onwards, it was in place. So it was great, right? But it was still like, it used to take us about a month to upgrade. And there was a lot of hand-holding, there was a lot of cross-team chatter that used to happen. So between 2014 to 2016, we went with Juno and then so forth with the upgrades, and it was slow. After 2018, we started to do in-place upgrades, which was stateless. So you could get the entire OpenStack bits with the OS upgrade, the post configs, everything, and then the upgrades were seamless. Between 2018 to 2025, now we have improved on the stateless upgrades, and now we can upgrade clouds within a couple of days. So like, we are talking of the entire fleet. So every year, we are upgrading over 1 million plus cores of racks. So as what do we may call it? Within a 3-month time frame, we do the entire fleet, and we keep going, right? And we do like we skip an upgrade, so we can go faster, and we keep current. So it's been great. With these cloud upgrades and the scale, you got to keep automation up to date as well, because the team is still small, and you got to manage and maintain these clouds. So we have automation that runs on the control plane or on the cloud management layer, where you can, all the OpenStack components we have self-healing in place, we have automation in place that looks at these components and self-heals them before we land up into a P0 or P1 issue, right? Simultaneously, we look at the hardware layer as well. We have a lot of automation built in on the hardware layer as well, where it looks at the entire fleet. We have self-healing on the fleet. It looks at the components. It takes them out of rotation before the machine crashes, so that you don't land up into a situation where the app is just like left hung, or it crashes and it creates a P1. So we have automation. We have a lot of self-healing and automation at both the layers, where these machines are taken care of seamlessly. They go in and out of rotation. In addition to this, we also have proprietary tools that we have built. We have Galaxy, which we had spoken about some time back. So Galaxy is basically, it looks at the entire fleet and its inventory management, and it gives you a bird's eye view. Within a couple of minutes, you can exactly figure out which part of your cloud is broken or where it has been impacted, and you can go fix it, right? And then we have a bunch of telemetry dashboards that you can look at, like how long was the impact, when was there an impact, or if machines are going up and down, why these machines are going up and down, and all that stuff, right? So that's how we look at the clouds, where we have a whole lot of automation that keeps the clouds up and running and improves the availability for our end customers. And that enables us to keep growing and innovate and keep moving faster, and enables us to save money, which we pass it on to the end customer, and keep managing our clouds at Walmart. We have a talk that talks about rebalancing, a part of the automation, which is tomorrow in the same room at 2 o'clock. And Sukesh and Jimmy will be talking about that, where we showcase how we move our machines, where we rebalance the machines across these cloud endpoints and for the various operations that we run on these clouds. Thank you, and I'll pass it on to Allison.
Thank you. All right, so thank you, Gerald. It's really great to hear the Walmart story, and I've never heard, it's nice to hear seamless upgrades. I don't know, I still have some PTSD from some of those pain points I heard about. So the next part of the presentation, I want to talk about some trends that we're seeing from the foundation that are really driving the market growth I was talking about earlier. And we're seeing this affect not only OpenStack or Kata containers, but all open source infrastructure software. And I'm sure that there will be many of you who have your own perspectives that I'd love to hear about this week. So the first one is digital sovereignty. This one is becoming increasingly important, and it's around, where your data is stored, who has access to it, and most importantly, what laws and regulations may apply to it. But one of the great things that I want to highlight is the open source response to digital sovereignty. And that's something that the flexibility of open source has really provided to be a unique advantage to overcome some of the challenges. And what we've seen, we have a massive footprint of over 300 public cloud data centers based on OpenStack. And that footprint just continues to grow. We learn more about them every month. Jimmy MacArthur here, he talks to users all the time, and we're adding more pins to this map. So if your pin is not represented, please find him and talk to him about your footprint. But we also have a private cloud footprint that's equally impressive, and we're seeing more and more of these come online as well. So one great example is that 9 of the biggest banks in France, so finance, everyone's data should be secure, and there are a lot of laws that apply to that. They all trust OpenStack. They all run on OpenStack, work with regional partners who understand those laws and regulations. And so that's led to a really big increase in some of these partners that we have that have a very regional focus, but those are increasingly important to make sure that we have a response to these laws and regulations. One such use case that I almost included, but this morning I changed my slides. The United Nations actually just launched an OpenStack-based private cloud, and for a lot of these same reasons. And we're going to be talking more about that as a foundation and how they're going to be using OpenStack to protect their data and be as transparent as possible with their citizens. Another trend is licensing changes. So I don't know if anyone heard about the change that Broadcom made in 2023, but it has been impactful. We used to call it Merry Christmas OpenStack last year because it's created a wave of OpenStack interest that has been incredible. I was talking to a Forrester analyst, and he was like, yeah, we haven't heard much from OpenStack, but then I've been getting truckloads of questions from enterprises around how they can get off of VMware into OpenStack. And I was like, hey, me too. We're really excited to see OpenStack community and our partners really stand up and offer solutions. And one of the really interesting things is we talked to our members that I highlighted earlier. Right after this change, I think we did this survey last April maybe, so we're still at the very beginning. This happened in December 2023. So fast forward 5 months, over 80% of our members had already received an inquiry to migrate workloads from VMware to OpenStack, which inquiry is great, but inquiries don't pay the bills, right? But the next impressive thing is over 60% of them had already won that business and made those migrations. And we're hearing more and more of them. I actually have one in my inbox from this morning that they migrated, it was a bank in Indonesia, and it took 4 days to perform their migration, and now they're all up and running on OpenStack. So these stories are just coming out of the woodwork, and we're really excited to see OpenStack not only take an opportunity in the virtualization market, but also see organizations learn how they can actually modernize their infrastructure with OpenStack and maybe even make it a little bit more efficient along the way and ditch some services that they may not have needed. One such user is Geico. It's nice to do an event in North America where most people probably have heard of Geico. When we used this in Korea, I think we had to put a little bit more background on what Geico was. But they are a really massive insurer, and they are working with a partner of ours to migrate workloads from VMware to OpenStack. And we actually published a white paper last September where we highlighted some of their experiences and why they actually did it. Because if you've worked with financial services companies, it takes a long time to make these decisions. And so for them to move on this quickly was really impressive, and it showed how much of a movement this really is. But if you have questions or you even have stories that you want to tell, this is actually happening here this week. So in addition to the open source response, we have an OpenInfra Days North America response. There is a talk, today's Thursday, right? Yep, today. But economics of migrating from VMware to OpenStack. I think that's Ken from Rackspace. Yep, right over here. And so he'll be talking about that in the other room this afternoon at 4:30. And then tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 in this room, Jimmy will be leading a panel talking about going from VMware to OpenStack and what the impact has been on the virtualization landscape. So please attend these if you have questions. But if you have your own story, please find Jimmy or myself. We have a working group in the OpenInfra community that is trying to explain to the entire industry why this move is important, and we want you to be part of that story. So the next one is around security. So security has always been a thing. When you're building your data center, it's a critical, important piece that your end users are worried about and that you want to make sure that your workloads are as secure as possible. But one of the interesting things is, the container hype started around 2016, 2017, and everyone turned to the container landscape. But then we started finding there was a lot of vulnerability. And so there's a lot of challenges in how do you make sure that your containers are secure and how to ensure that your entire environment, your cloud environment, is secure, which, as I said, it's not a new challenge, but it is something that you have to think of and it has to be top of mind. But this is something where Kata Containers has been really changing the narrative. So this is a secure container runtime backed by a global open source community. Ildiko Vangsha, oh dear. 1 minute. That's not going to happen, sorry. I'm going to do my best. She's going to be talking more about it in a minute, but we've seen the hyperscalers turn to it. Most recently, NVIDIA has turned to it, and it's really helped reverse that narrative and say that containers are now secure and that there's an open source community behind the software that can ensure that your environment is as secure as possible. Okay, the last one. I know everyone's probably so tired of hearing about AI, so I apologize. But AI really has fundamentally redefined the requirements for infrastructure, whether it's the accelerated compute you need, all of the storage, or even the footprint that you need. But it's not just AI. It's what is your cloud doing? How is your cloud evolving to serve these AI workloads? And one of the things that I've personally found interesting as this AI wave has hit us all in the face, is that, OpenStack laid the foundation for HPC workloads. Like the scientific SIG is meeting here this week. It's been an ongoing conversation for as long as I can remember. And HPC laid the groundwork, in my opinion, for AI. A lot of its characteristics are the same, and that means that OpenStack, in particular, is well poised to take on this new opportunity. How big is this opportunity? So Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, has a perspective, which is very valid as the CEO of NVIDIA, that this is a $2 trillion opportunity. So, we talked about that $8.8 trillion opportunity. This is a quarter of it. So that's massive. One use case, one trend, is a quarter of the whole opportunity. And so that's something we all need to band together on. And it's actually another working group that I'm leading within the OpenInfra community to talk about how we as an open source community can respond to that, make sure the software can stand up to it, and that we are working together to address it. But we already are. This is great news. So there already are some production use cases, including the fastest supercomputer in the UK, who is working with Stack HPC, which is a really great story that we'll be telling soon in the working group. And another one that I'm hoping to publish next week is that FPT Smart Cloud is an OpenInfra member based in Vietnam. And they have built 3 separate AI-powered use cases using OpenStack. One of the ones I found really interesting was that they have built this ID scanning system for all of the Vietnamese banks throughout Vietnam. And it's 10,000 requests per minute. So their infrastructure has to stand up and do some pretty powerful stuff. And they're doing it at 50% of the cost of a hyperscaler. So that data and all those calculations are actually why I haven't published it yet, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But it's going to be really exciting and impressive and really set the stage for what we as a global community can do with OpenStack around AI. Similar to the VMware licensing changes, we have some sessions here this week. We have leveraging OpenInfra and open source Gen AI to address climate change, which I think is Armstrong's talk. That's tomorrow in this room, yes. And I will be moderating a panel tomorrow as well in this room talking about how we as a community can take on this opportunity and address the challenges that are ahead of us. So, TLDR, open source is the way. We're doing it. We all need to do it together, all 110,000 of us, but especially those of us here this week. Let's talk. Let's network this week. Again, there's a lot of us here from the OpenInfra Foundation. We want to tell your story. So please come up to us and join us. This is a link to join us, the community, but find us in person as well. And I'm sorry I went over my 1 minute by a lot, so thank you.
No. Chris has one. Thank you, Allison and Gerald. Next up is our headline sponsor, Rackspace Technologies, with Chris Brew and Luke Repko. They're going to be talking about
What are we going to be talking about?
unapologetically resolute, a bold leap into open infrastructure.
That's what we are. We're unapologetically resolute. Yeah, we're going to be talking.
Unapologetically wordy.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to you about what we've been working on for the last year, because a lot of you probably know OpenStack, or Rackspace is associated with OpenStack. If you know OpenStack, you know Rackspace, and so we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing. Chris is going to kick it off. But yeah, I am Luke. I've been with Rackspace for a little over 10 years. Chris has been at Rackspace for 15. Combined, we got 25 years under our belts of keeping the lights on and our data centers, public and private cloud. Chris is with private. I'm with the public cloud. I run the day-to-day operations. Chris?
I am a cloud architect, so I do designing clouds for customers, helping customers on their cloud journey, et cetera. And Luke and I have teamed up with Kevin and Rackspace to do the next version of OpenStack at Rackspace. So there are a lot of OpenStack solutions that exist in the world that run OpenStack on Kubernetes. At Rackspace, we wanted to, better? Okay. At Rackspace, we wanted to take another approach and run OpenStack and Kubernetes. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but what we're trying to say is that we want to enable customers to run their custom applications on the same Kubernetes clusters that OpenStack is running from. So standing on the shoulders of giants, we could see a future where OpenStack and customers' apps could coexist in the same Kubernetes clusters. The integration of Neutron OVN and Kube OVN spans that networking bridge, allowing customer apps to talk to VMs inside of an OpenStack cluster. Think VPCs. Enabling customers to run their own apps alongside OpenStack in the same Kubernetes clusters allows for unlimited combinations and flexibility. As an example, a database could be running in an OpenStack VM space and webheads running in a Kubernetes pod and intercommunicating between them. A customer could also extend their private IP space into Kubernetes or vice versa, all using Neutron Magic with Neutron OVN and Kube OVN. By leaning heavily into the OLM model, we ensure stability and reliability in vital core functionality and services that are deployed inside of the Kubernetes cluster. So OpenStack needs Rabbit. Okay, we'll use a Rabbit operator to do that. OpenStack needs a database. We'll use the MariaDB operator to do that. By using operators, we also give the customer the ability to use those same operators in their same applications. It's bridging the two customer application and OpenStack in the same Kubernetes cluster. Overall, the ultimate enablement of customer choice that will allow us to take over the world. As we all know, world domination is always more fun with friends. And as Allison pointed out, there's $8 trillion market we can take over.
That's a lot of friends.
A lot of friends we could have. Now that we have what we thought was a grand and great idea, how do we make it all work? We looked at the community at large and saw that there were three main user personas. We have the developer on one hand who just wants to download something, tinker with it, and play around with it. We have enterprise IT on the other side that requires a more robust solution. CVE scanning and patching for your images. Metrics, observability, monitoring, all the things that an enterprise IT would require. To reach the largest audience possible, we wanted to design a solution that fits all of the user personas. So we have developer, or we have hobbyist, we have IT, we have developer. And we think we did that with our GenaStack Community Edition. Now that Rackspace is reaffirming its commitments to the OpenStack community, we're starting by giving an open source version of our new tooling called GenaStack. So GenaStack is the basis for everything we're going to be doing going forward in OpenStack inside of Rackspace. And now why are we doing this? For the longest time, Rackspace has operated in a two cloud mentality. We have our public cloud, and we have our private clouds. This artificial separation resulted in a massive duplication of effort all the way from development through operations and ending in user experience. This was a terrible idea that stifled innovation and velocity in new products and features reaching markets. We finally understood that, right? We're running OpenStack-ish in our public clouds. We're running OpenStack in our private clouds. Why are we not using the same code base? Why are we not using the same operational tooling and the same user experience? By bringing our public cloud and our private clouds teams together, we can achieve our goal of simplifying previously complex code bases, reducing operational and support costs, and bringing a consistent user experience. Now to share some of our lessons learned, turn it over to Luke.
Yeah, so over the last 10 years or so, Rackspace has been working on OpenStack. We've been working on OpenStack for a long time, but I think at the very beginning of our journey, we internally took a wrong turn. We forked a lot of the upstream OpenStack code bases and kind of went into individual silos. Those silos kept working on OpenStack internally. We kept committing upstream here and there, but a lot of the forks that we had, we maintained internally. They stayed that way, and that's a recipe for disaster, right? Because we lost a lot of code, a lot of feature parity along the way, and it was never a good thing. And so Chris alluded to duplication of efforts. So we had that in a big way because between that internal code base that we were maintaining and then the private cloud doing their own thing, there were two separate teams, two separate BUs doing this, right? And so we had all kinds of deployment tools like Salt in configuration management, Salt, Python, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, you name it, we probably had it in prod. And so we had to get rid of that at some point, right? So over the years, that led us to where we are now. We have GenaStack, right? So that's what we've been working on for the last year, Open Center, Kubernetes, running GenaStack, running Kubernetes, and then running, let's find my spot here. Running OpenStack alongside of Kubernetes, right, is the whole point. That's what GenaStack gives you. It bundles OpenStack and an easy way to install. It's an easy way to install OpenStack, okay? And with that, so we had to give developers an easy way to get onboarded, right? So we have OpenTofu and Ansible are some of the tooling that's some of the tooling that we've used to help our developers onboard quickly, because there's only a small group of us that have really been working on this in a big way. So for pulling in quick changes, or to enable our developers to code quickly and get releases done, we had to make the lab environments that are building OpenStack, and, our Kubernetes environments with OpenStack installed on top of it, easy and repeatable. So we're using OpenTofu and Ansible for that. And of course, at the same time, while everybody's working on their code, we're enforcing Docs' code, so it's right there in the code base. You go to docs.rackspacecloud.com. You can see all the docs that are associated with GenaStack right there. And of course, we're using SDLCs and ADRs, which is going to help keep us from having the same conversations over and over. It'll take a lot of that redundancy out and let us innovate at scale, right? And so no more code chaos, right? So public cloud and private cloud, we've already mentioned before that our teams have gone off. We've separated ourselves, and we're bringing each other together. We're unifying our forces, and we're coding together again at Rackspace internally, and we're back. So that's the whole thing. The statement we're trying to make is that we're back. The rack is back. Yeah, we're gonna start contributing more, and that's what we hope you will see from us. Yeah, and that's about all I have. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
Just a quick link to the documentation and the repo we're sharing out to everybody. And a shout out to Ken for his Cloud Mafia's logo.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Oh, we're a minute ahead of time. We gave a minute back.
Yeah.
So Rack is back at OpenStack. So thank you, Chris and Luke. And also Rackspace is one of our headline sponsors. So thank you for that. Next, I'd like to welcome DJ Min, the founder and CEO of ZConverter. ZConverter is also a headline sponsor, so big round of applause for both ZConverter and Rackspace, please. And thank you. And DJ Min will be talking about migrating from VMware to OpenStack. So all yours.
Let me show you the topic. Okay, can I use?
Yes, you can use this one.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak with you. I'm the founder and the CEO of ZConverter. ZConverter is a member of VMware Migration to OpenStack Working Group. Today, I'm going to talk about the 7 essential considerations for successful VMware migration to OpenStack. And the guy on the right is me. I paid for AI. Recently, I had the chance to talk with VMware IT managers who work for a conglomerate involved in manufacturing, telecom, or SI companies. They are all affected by VMware's price changes and are considering migrating 1,000 to 2,000 the virtual machine to OpenStack. I heard some interesting news from them about another price changes for the VMware alternatives, such as Nutanix and Big Techs. They have adjusted their prices to 80% of VMware's. Due to this, they shared their multi-hypervisor strategy to avoid the sudden price hikes or the vendor lock-in issues. Also, they want to have flexible move in and move out capabilities across the multi-hypervisors and the cloud platforms. They emphasize the importance of a virtual machine and the data protection during the migration. Also, they want to have the migration drill feature to test the migration process and estimate migration time before actual migration. In addition, they wanted to automate their migration process to eliminate human errors. Let me summarize the 7 key findings or requirements for a successful VMware migration to OpenStack. The number 1 is virtual machine and the data protection capability during the migration process. Number 2 is migration drill feature. Number 3 is estimate migration time capability. Number 4, automate migration processes to eliminate any human error. Number 6 is like a flexible move in, move out capability. Sorry. Number 6 is like a free or affordable migration licenses to migrate it like 1,000 or 2,000, the virtual machine to OpenStack. And the final requirement is they want to have a single migration technology or tool to manage all these requirements. Let me talk about how to meet the 7 requirements. As you work to address all these requirements, we identified the 3 technology gaps in OpenStack: the backup, disaster recovery, and migration technologies. Fortunately, a Z converter has hypervisor agnostic, the backup, disaster recovery, and migration technology. 4 months ago, we launched OpenStack Z Task Force Team to tackle 3 technologies by leveraging our hypervisor agnostic technologies. This is the primary mission of OpenStack Z project team. Organizations can move in and move out their virtual machines across any hypervisors or cloud platforms. As demonstrated in this demo, OpenStack project will empower OpenStack move in and move out capability across different hypervisors or cloud platforms. Another mission is to protect the virtual machine and the data during the migration process. ZR is our hypervisor agnostic backup format. The first step of migration is the VMware's VMDK is backed up in a ZR format. Non-VMware, such as AWS, Bare Metal machines, are also backed up in a ZR backup format. The virtual machines and data are protected using our ZR backup format in the first step of migration. A second step is to recover ZR backup to OpenStack. We tested ZR to OpenStack migration thousands of times. We guarantee a migration success rate 99.9%. Let me talk about the migration drill and the migration time estimations. By leveraging the disaster recovery technology, organizations can conduct DR drills, which are essentially migration drills, and estimate the RTO, which is migration time. Let me explain why DR drill becomes a migration drill and why RTO is migration time. Assuming the VMware on the left is a production environment, and OpenStack on the right is a cloud DR environment. For disaster recovery services, the first step is to create a ZR backup. And second step is to recover ZR to OpenStack. Once this recovery process is completed, the services on the left side and the right side are identical. Let me summarize the features of the OpenStack Z project. The first capability is to protect the virtual machine and the data using ZR backup. The second capability is to recover ZR to OpenStack. This is migration drill. The third capability is the estimate migration time. The fourth capability, by leveraging OpenTofu automation script, you can automate all these migration process. And the fifth capability is flexible move in, move out capability. I'm going to show you in the next slide again. And this is a single migration tool. This is number 6, the capability. This tool will offer like affordable and complementary migration licenses. This demo shows the primary features of OpenStack Z project: flexible move in and move out capability across multi-hypervisors and cloud platforms. Due to the vendor lock-in issue, if an organization consider migrating the VMware virtual machine to containers, they might pay over $5,000 per virtual machine migration and spend over a year to complete their migrations. We recommend migrating VMware virtual machine to OpenStack virtual machine first to save time and money. The OpenStack G project will empower organizations to move their virtual machine across multi-hypervisors or cloud platforms. Yeah, we're looking forward to collaborating with OpenInfra community members. For more information, please contact the Austin outside. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes. All right, next up on the stage is going to be our project updates. We will be having OpenStack, Zool, Kata, and Starling X. Julia Krieger is the chair of the board of directors for the OpenInfra Foundation, and she'll be representing OpenStack today. We have James Blair, who is the Zool project team lead, and Ildiko, I'm not trying it, who is representing both Kata containers and Starling X as their community manager.
Huzzah. Perfection. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully I'll stick within the 5-minute window. We'll see. This feels like a rolling thing. Uh-oh, I already got the sign. Anyway, I want to start out by saying OpenStack is the de facto cloud computing platform that's open source. It's an infrastructure platform. And if you're not aware, OpenStack is an open source project for creating public and private clouds. And we know of over 300 public cloud data centers operating in the world. But one of the things I want to highlight is there's way more than just that. If you think about it, there are pieces and parts of OpenStack running in probably every cell site on the planet at this point in time. If you actually work in that telecom industry, it actually starts becoming mind-boggling, the infrastructure footprints, because you can have one vendor's OpenStack next to another vendor's OpenStack, next to another vendor's product, next to VMware. And ultimately, OpenStack powers many of these data centers and high-performance computing data centers as well around the world. And this is the result of OpenStack being one of the most active open source projects that we can think of. We have more than 450 organizations, and I was blown away yesterday when I looked at Garrett and went, we're nearing 1 million changes. It's 945,000 and change. And so if you think about it, this year, we're probably going to exceed 1 million. So I'm looking forward to it. So we've had 15 years as an open source project, 30 releases and counting. And what makes OpenStack so powerful, so sticky, so useful is that it's built around multi-tenancy at its core. And OpenStack also continues to evolve, but the discussion has shifted. It's not about feature parity anymore. It's about how can you leverage the model and the advantages of it so that you can have your scale and capabilities in a platform that fits your business needs. And so soon we'll have the epoxy release of OpenStack, which will be the 31st release. In just about a month. I think it's scheduled for April something, 6th, I think? 2nd? Okay, April 2nd. 2nd, thank you. And epoxy is what we call a slurp release, which is intended to provide set expectations around deprecation removal of features. And ultimately, this makes the upgrade experience a lot easier. And this work all goes back to the countless hours from our contributors. And when we think about upgrades and the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that comes with them, it's a powerful force. We have to look at it. We have to solve those problems as they come up. We also have to share the knowledge and experience that we gain in those items. But OpenStack has proved its way. It's proved itself that it's up to the challenges. And so if you have feedback or challenges or want to talk to a contributor, open source only works if we all work together. And so you can find contributors on the OFTC IRC network. You can find them here on the mailing list. And hopefully tonight at our birthday party, you will come share your experiences, your trials, your tribbles. I forgot my triple, unfortunately. But, you know, please talk to the person next to you, share some knowledge, share your context, spread the word. Thank you. And next we have James Blair.
I'll save the jacket for later. We'll do something special with the jacket. Hi, my name is James Blair. I am the founder and current maintainer and project lead, et cetera, of the Zool project. And if you're not familiar with the Zool project, it is an open source CI/CD system that we basically created to be the CI and CD system for OpenStack. So at the time, there was no system out there that could do what we needed to do in order to test a project as complex and vibrant as OpenStack. So we created Zool for that. It has, over the years, continued its adoption beyond the world of OpenStack because there's nothing that specifically ties it to it. It is a general purpose system. And we're actually seeing a lot of adoption in really completely unrelated communities, in the automotive sector, in embedded systems, things like that. Really, Zool specializes in testing large, complex projects and in either the real or virtual world. So it's quite flexible. The latest release of Zool was made on Tuesday. So I updated my slide to that, 11.3.0. I'll talk a little bit about what we've done recently that goes into that and what we plan to do in the future. The overall theme, though, for all of this is about sort of continuing scaling outside of the world that we started in. So we built Zool to be a system for the third most active open source project in the world at the time. As we've taken it to new communities, we've seen new challenges and have scaled it to even larger systems. So let's see if, hey, I can work a Mac. So about scaling Zool. We've scaled it to support even larger number of repositories and even larger repositories themselves. So we've actually some of the new users of Zool are interested in building, let's say, the Android open source project. I don't know if you've actually looked at that recently. It's a terabyte and 700 repositories. So there were changes we needed to make to Zool to handle that. Monorepos, they present their own challenges. Zool is actually, frankly, it's an antidote to monorepos. If you run Zool, you do not need to use a monorepo. It's actually it answers the same question that a monorepo answers, which is how do you coordinate work across different systems. Nonetheless, we have people that want to use Zool with monorepos. Maybe they have a monorepo and then some other stuff. Maybe they're migrating to or from a monorepo. It needs to handle that as well. So those are some of the things that we've been adding to Zool to help support. And also, we've added a new sort of late binding job variable system. It turns out we added this feature to Zool that lets you configure jobs with variables. That makes it very flexible. Some people thought that was a really good idea, and so they put tens of thousands of variables in their Zool job definitions, and we're like, oh, okay, we need to handle that scale better, and we do now. We've done a lot of new things that are that you won't see in the OpenStack world around circular dependencies. So OpenStack very deliberately made a choice that all of its dependencies between changes, that is, if you're upgrading, if you're making a change to one OpenStack component, and then you're making a second change to another OpenStack component, and the second one depends on the first one, that would be a strictly linear relationship, and that's because OpenStack, we always wanted the deployment process to be able to be continuous. Other systems, like embedded systems, do not work that way. They upgrade the entire system at once. And so Zool has actually grown a lot of new features around circular dependencies to handle that sort of stuff. There's another, I'm going to save some time here and just say that there are a number of improvements around circular dependencies and job deduplication in circular dependencies that are in recent versions of Zool. Sort of continuing the theme of scaling, we have this status page in Zool where we show everything that's happening in the system. That, as you can imagine, that only scales up to a certain point. We got to a point where people were like, you know, you're showing 10,000 things on this status page. I can't just scroll to see them all. So we have a new status page that sort of lets you zoom out and zoom in, depending on the kind of Zool system and the sort of question that you're trying to answer. Things that we're working on and are coming up. So there's an effort to add OpenID Connect integration with artifact and container repositories. So right now, Zool has a system built in for storing secrets securely to interact with external systems. This OpenID Connect-based system will make it a lot more automatic. So you can basically set up connection once between a Zool system and, say, a container repository, and then any Zool job will be able to automatically use that to publish artifacts there. Another effort that is ongoing is what we call node pool in Zool. We're going to delete one of the oldest components of Zool. We call it node pool. That's the part of the Zool system that talks to clouds. We're going to delete it and move its functionality into Zool itself. This is one of those things where that code was very old and doesn't behave like the rest of the system. So it's time to bring it into the fold, and it's going to let us do a lot of really interesting things because of that. So there are a couple of talks here about Zool. One is if you'd like just an introduction to what Zool is, how it works, and how you can get started with it, then the first talk, Project Getting with Zool, would be appropriate for that. And if you'd like to learn more about this whole node pool in Zool thing and that future work, that is Managing Test Resources and Images with Zool. So the times are up there. And I will now hand it over to Ildiko.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ildiko Vancha. The secret is out of the bag now. So I will be talking about two projects, and I think I'm between you and the coffee break, so I will be probably only 5 minutes over my time. So Kata Containers, it is a container runtime, an open source container runtime, and what's cool about this project, if you don't know it yet, is that it creates kind of a fusion between containers and virtual machines. So I like to look at it as an evolution path for both of those technologies. So what it gives you a lightweight container environment, but it actually provides it to you in a lightweight virtual machine. So it gives you isolation through hardware virtualization, which is pretty cool. And the latest and greatest release of Kata Containers is currently 3.14. So if you're a new user, go and check out the latest and greatest. And if you're an existing user, make sure that you go and install the latest and greatest. So what kind of use cases would you use Kata Containers for? Now, in today's digital infrastructure, I would say everything. Because in today's connected world, cybersecurity is under the magnifying glass for a very good reason. So think about things like AI and machine learning that we already mentioned today. So data and sensitive data is kind of a controversial conversation around AI these days. And there are some data sets that you just really don't want to share publicly, and like health and healthcare data is part of that, or other personal information. You just don't want that out in the public. So when it comes to training those models, some additional layers of isolation and security just doesn't hurt in those environments. Another use case that is really popular is multi-tenancy, which in a cloud environment, you don't really think twice. But if you think about Kubernetes, which is an open source container orchestration platform that was designed to make sure that orchestrating your containers and containerized workloads is a breeze. And someone else will take care of the infrastructure because we don't care. We just want those containers to run. Now that means in Kubernetes language that multi-tenancy wasn't really baked into it from the beginning. But if you're using Kubernetes with Kata containers, then you just get that out of the box. And it is also written in the Kubernetes documentation, so you can go and consult that to figure out how to do it. Now, if you want even more security, there is a sibling project to Kata containers in the cloud native ecosystem called confidential containers. And what that project does is it brings you confidential computing methods and techniques and brings it into the cloud native world. And Kata containers is the vessel for this project, which means that if you want Coco, you will have to have Kata, because Kata is the agent and the whole infrastructure around Coco. And this project will enable and allow you to use concepts like trusted execution environment. So what that means is that your data and process will be secured on the hardware layer if you have hardware platforms that are supporting those technologies. So again, pretty cool. And Kata containers, the community recently-ish moved towards a simplified release process, which means that the community dropped the use of stable branches for the minor releases so that they can put these out way more frequently. And I hope you'll hear how significant that is. So what this means to you is that don't rely on stable releases. It's not cool anymore. What you have to do is move to the latest and greatest as fast as you can. So in case of Kata, monthly. Because those minor releases will bring you improvements as well as important and critical bug fixes. So again, if you're a new user or an existing user, go to the latest and greatest. And what that means is that for like a week and a half or so, that is still 3.14, but after that it will be 3.15, so I will go after you if you don't install that one at that time. Because it's important for all those bug fixes and important enhancements. And when it comes to the major releases, though, I gotta say that the community is following the more feature-driven method and process for the major releases. So for 4.0, the biggest improvement will be to move to a Rust-based runtime to make the container runtime as is even more performant and just really keep up with the most recent and powerful programming languages. So that will come in 4.0 sometime, hopefully planned for this year in 2025. Now, the other project that I would love to talk about, another 5 minutes I got, hopefully I'm mostly in time. So this is Starling X. It is an open source, fully integrated distributed cloud platform. That was a mouthful. So what does that mean in practice? In one package, you get things like Linux kernel with the Debian operating system, OpenStack, Kubernetes, and many more open source components and building blocks along components and services that the community designs and develops themselves. So there is some complexity to this platform, but because deploying and running a cloud platform is not simple, and even in one data center, just imagine that you do it in a geographically distributed environment with one platform that you get in one ISO package, and you can download it today from the internet. And the latest and greatest release of that one just came out last week. It is 10.0. So again, reminder, go and install the latest and greatest, even though this one has a stable branch, but still go and install the latest and greatest. Because you get a lot of improvements with that release. For example, if you think about, again, cloud networking is something that is always a challenge. And in a geographically distributed environment, it's even worse. So what Starling X 10.0 brings to you is, you're probably all familiar with this IPv4, IPv6 fiasco, because again, we are living in a connected world and the number of connected devices just grows and grows. So we kind of ran out of the IPv4 address space. And in an ideal world, you know, the ones where unicorns live, the one that doesn't exist, we would all just jump over to IPv6. We would say thank you to IPv4 and leave it behind. Now in reality, that doesn't happen. So what that means in practice is that operators and infrastructure service providers just have to be able to support both of these simultaneously. So Starling X users have been asking and working with the community to implement IPv4, IPv6 dual stack support natively in the platform, which with 10.0 is now available, along with other improvements in the networking space. Further improvements include unified software management. I think Allison was mentioning upgrades and things like that. So now with Starling X, you have one interface to do patching and updates and upgrades to your entire distributed deployment, which is pretty great and a huge improvement. You can also configure whether you want standard or low latency kernel in your environment during runtime, which is pretty great. And you might scratch your head why the heck I have documentation on the manageability slide. Now, that is the reminder to go RTFM, meaning read the fabulous manual. Because Starling X integrates a lot of components that will make the platform easier to manage and provide a lot of functionality for your workloads as well. And the community calls them platform services, but because of the number of those, it just grows. And they have, you know, a lot of options to configure them. Now you have a centralized piece in the Starling X documentation to find information about all these. So go read the documentation and let the community know where it can be further improved to make sure that managing all this distributed environment is going to be a breeze. And Starling X also integrates the Harbor registry, which is an OCI compliant, I'm running out of time, registry. So gives you, again, added security through artifact signing, role-based access control, and all those things. OCI compliant, so you can actually use that in a multi-cloud environment, which is pretty great with other compliant registries. And You can use Kata containers in the Starling X platform. I mean, what more could I say to security at this point? So beyond 10.0, guess what? It's gonna be 11.0, and there will be further improvements, as always, to security and manageability, scalability as well in the platform, along with things like replacing HashiCorp Vault with OpenBOW. Just to, again, going back to working in the open source space together. And on that note, to keep myself mostly on time, hopefully you're excited to meet all the OpenInfra communities and work with them if you're not already. So we have an event called Project Teams Gathering where you can do that. And the next one is coming up between April 7 and 11. It's a fully online event, so it is accessible from all around the globe. Please make sure to go to the link, openinfra.org/PTG, and hit the button register, so you will get all the information about the event. And you can mingle with OpenInfra communities as well as adjacent communities and talk about, release processes, what goes into the next release, priorities, and anything that you have on the mind about maintaining and developing these projects. And with that, I will give the word back to Amy and Sash for some more housekeeping information.
All right, first off, actually it still works. First off, I want to thank all our speakers and for all of you for attending today for our keynotes.
And also a special thanks to Scale for allowing us to work with them to co-locate this event. The venue is great, and it worked out really good for us this time. A couple of reminders for today. We just putting up some schedule reminders. If you want to scan the QR code, it just takes you to the page with the event schedule. So today, all of the sessions are in this room, which is room 106, and the room right across, which is 107. We have a coffee break right after Amy and I finish, and it's right outside, and that's sponsored by Pure Storage. Then we have sessions till 1 p.m., and we have a lunch break from 1 to 2:30. Please do, go out and talk to the sponsors. They have their tables out there, and also, look at some of the other sessions. And then we have sessions again from 2:30 to 6 p.m. We have another announcement for tonight, so hold on one second. But for March 7th, that is tomorrow, we have sessions in room 106, which is this one, and 212, which I think is upstairs, so definitely check that out. Tomorrow's sessions are from 9 to 11:30. We do have a longer break tomorrow. We decided to do that so you can check out some of the other, co-located events maybe, a longer lunch break, talk to the sponsors. And then we have sessions, forums, and workshops till 5:45, and then we have closing remarks back here at 5:45 p.m.
We were buzzing. All right, so as we mentioned this morning, we have a happy hour tonight at Dear Wolf. You can get tickets for me. But then I was handed these lovely little cards talking about your contribution, if you're on the developer side. On the operator side, how many upgrades you've done, your first installation of OpenStack, and similar type questions, including events related. So if you're not an operator or a developer, but you've come to a bunch of OpenInfra and OpenStack events, you're included as well. When you filled out these forms, which are going to be outside at the coffee break, there's a board to tape them up onto. And then Helena was telling me that we are going to make some announcements and some prizes this evening at the happy hour.
Also, for the schedule, I did want to call out one session. The Scientific 6 session is tomorrow at 2. It's their 10th anniversary, so they're going to do something different this year with some lightning talks and things like that. But lastly, to wrap this up, we did want to thank all the sponsors. So Spotlight sponsors Jetstream 2 and Lightbits, Coffee sponsor, right outside, Pure Storage, Diversity sponsor, Open Metal, and OpenStack birthday sponsor, Red Hat.
And once again, I'd like to thank our headline sponsors, Rackspace Technology and zConverter.
And if the sponsors are out here, please do stand up so people know who you are and they can come and talk to you, if you don't mind. Any of the sponsors, could you please stand up? Thank you. So thank you, everyone, and definitely reach out to them and talk to them. Thanks. Coffee break is right outside, so go ahead.